Indiana had 9 road games moved to larger arenas last year, but just 4 so far for 2026. WNBA teams are moving more games to different arenas this upcoming season, but Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever have significantly fewer of those games. The WNBA's regular season schedule announced Wednesday, including 19 games moved to different arenas, up from 15.
9 games dropped to 4, and that's no coincidence. Last season, the Indiana Fever had 9 road games moved to larger NBA arenas to handle the Caitlin Clark-driven crowds. This year, that number is down to just 4. At the same time, the league increased total arena relocations from 15 to 19. So if demand is higher than ever, why are fewer Fever games being scheduled in bigger venues?
The Washington Mystics, Connecticut Sun, and Atlanta Dream each moved 1 game against Indiana last year, but none for the upcoming season. The New York Liberty, Portland Fire, Mercury, Valkyries, and Minnesota Lynx are already in NBA arenas, removing any need to move games for bigger crowds. Is part of this due to injuries? Well, they would like you to believe that, I think. They would like you to believe, oh, well, you know, she got injured last year. We don't want to move. We don't want to commit to a bigger arena. God forbid she...
This is where the official explanation starts to fall apart. Teams claim it's about injury risk, pointing to Caitlin Clark missing most of last season after her July 15th groin injury at TD Garden, and saying they're being cautious about locking in larger venues. That sounds reasonable until you look at the attendance numbers. Even after Clark announced she would return, the relocated games still sold out. The Fever averaged 15,884 fans per road game last season, about 4,000 more than any other team. And that's with Clark appearing in only 3 of the 9 moved games before getting hurt.
Have names like Renee Montgomery, part owner of the Atlanta Dream. Names like Sheila Johnson, part owner of the Washington Mystics. Sheila Johnson, the same person who threw a fit that Caitlin Clark was named Time Magazine's Woman Athlete of the Year. And she said, why give it to Caitlin Clark? Let's give it to the whole entire league. If you ask me, this is a subtle play from folks like Sheila Johnson and Renee Montgomery. Because at the end of the season, they decreased the amount of Fever games that have been moved to bigger arenas. Yet in totality, they increased the league from 15 games to 19 games.
Now let's look at who's actually making these decisions. Renee Montgomery, part owner of the Atlanta Dream. Sheila Johnson, part owner of the Washington Mystics. Remember Sheila Johnson? She's the one who publicly criticized Time for naming Caitlin Clark Athlete of the Year, arguing the honor should have gone to the entire league instead. Last season, the Dream moved 1 game against Indiana to State Farm Arena. This season, none. The Mystics moved 1 game last year. This year, none again. And the Connecticut Sun, they moved the game to TD Garden, the same game where Clark got injured. This season, they haven't scheduled a single move.
Times this season. You see how massive the season was? You see how much of a success it was this year? And we only had Caitlin Clark. See, we don't really need her. I told you guys we were going to do this without her. Interesting. The decrease in moved Fever games comes after Caitlin Clark played in just 13 games last season. Clark appeared in just 3 of the 9 moved road games, including July 15th against the Connecticut Sun at TD Garden. Clark injured her groin in the 4th quarter of that game and missed the remainder of the season. The Fever remained the league's biggest attendance draw last year, averaging 15,884 fans.
But here's what really gives it away. Last season, the Chicago Sky and Dallas Wings each had 2 games moved to larger arenas. This year, they're down to 1 apiece. Meanwhile, Toronto's expansion team has 5 games relocated, including 2 in Montreal and 2 in Vancouver. The league is clearly willing to move games to chase bigger crowds and new markets. They're just being selective about which teams get that treatment. The numbers tell the whole story. Total relocated games are up from 15 to 19. Fever games in major arenas are down from 9 to 4. That's not about injury risk or scheduling conflicts.
But teams could still change course before the WNBA regular season starts. I think that is likely. It's easier to say, oh, we're gonna show everybody that we know this league is good with or without Caitlin Clark. We're gonna prove it. But once you talk to your owner buddies and they say, look how much we made. I mean, Indiana Fever came to town. Look how much we're making, right? Once Renee Montgomery and Sheila Johnson talk to the owner of the Las Vegas Aces, talk to the owner of the Chicago Sky, and they say, hey, what was that gate looking like? Oh, damn.
Now look at the 4 games they did schedule. July 5th against Vegas, August 8th against Chicago, August 18th against Toronto, and August 20th against Dallas. Notice the pattern? Every one of them is deep into the season, long after the initial media frenzy fades. Last year, the league put 9 Fever games in NBA arenas right out of the gate, fully cash in on peak Caitlin Clark interest. This season, they're betting they can generate early buzz without her, then strategically roll out the big venue games later. And there's another factor almost no one is talking about. The collective bargaining agreement still isn't finalized. The 2026 season could realistically be delayed. If you're an NBA arena manager, why lock in WNBA dates now, when the season itself isn't guaranteed? Those dates can stay open for Jonas Brothers concerts, Taylor Swift tours, or Luke Bryan shows, events that guarantee sellouts. If those don't materialize, you can always slide in a Fever game later. But there's no incentive to commit early when higher revenue events might come calling.
Against the Fever, the 2025 schedule was released 2 months earlier. The Dream announced in March that their game on May 22nd against Indiana would be moved to the State Farm home arena, home of the NBA's Hawks. The Wings announced a week later that they moved a game against the Fever to American Airlines Arena. A Dream spokesperson tells Front Office Sports that they are always exploring new opportunities. The 2026 WNBA season remains in jeopardy of not starting on time, as the league and its union have yet to come to terms on a new...
In February 2025, the Chicago Sky announced they were moving their first 2 games against the Fever to the United Center, even though the schedule had been released 2 months earlier in December. In March, the Atlanta Dream followed suit, shifting their May 22nd matchup with Indiana to State Farm Arena, home of the Hawks. A week later, the Dallas Wings did the same, moving a Fever game to the American Airlines Center. All of these decisions came months after the initial schedule release. A Fever spokesperson told Front Office Sports they couldn't comment on what other teams might do regarding venue changes, but acknowledged that teams still have the option to adjust before the regular season begins. Translation: expect more of these announcements as tip-off approaches, and teams realize just how much money they're leaving on the table.
No CBA deal reached. If I'm an owner of an NBA arena, if I'm in charge of selecting what events get put in these arenas, well, without a CBA deal reached, why would I want to start already Xing out dates with potential WNBA games when I can keep those dates open for when a Jonas Brothers come to town, when a Taylor Swift comes to town, when a Luke Bryan or whoever come to town? Why would I start Xing out these dates? I wouldn't. It's not smart. I want to keep those dates open as long as I
Think about the position this puts ownership groups in. On one hand, figures like Renee Montgomery and Sheila Johnson have been vocal about the league's success not hinging on any single player. They've pushed the idea that the WNBA was always on the verge of a breakthrough, and that Caitlin Clark simply arrived as momentum was already building. It's about pride, legacy, and resisting a growth narrative centered on one star. But talk to owners like those of the Las Vegas Aces or the Chicago Sky, and they'll tell you exactly how much revenue they generated when the Fever came to town last season. The gate receipts don't lie. Moving a game from a 7,000-seat arena to a 20,000-seat NBA venue and selling it out isn't a marginal gain. It's transformative money for franchises that have operated in the red for years.
Bigger events. And if nobody takes those dates, fine. Then we'll slide a couple Indiana Fever games in here. But until then, we're keeping these dates open. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I appreciate all the support. Like the video, let me know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel, that would mean so much to me. See you next time, and as always, take it easy.
There's a clear tension between the narrative some owners want to promote and the financial reality every owner has to confront. The compromise is obvious. Schedule fewer Fever games in large arenas early. Frame it as injury caution or strategic planning. and see what happens. If attendance hold without Caitlin Clark driving massive crowds, they can say, "See, the league isn't dependent on one player." If attendance drops and revenue takes a hit, they quietly announce more venue changes in February and March, just like they did this year. It's a calculated hedge designed to test whether the WNBA can sustain record attendance without leaning heavily on the Caitlin Clark effect, while still leaving themselves an escape hatch if the experiment fails. What makes this gamble risky is that the data already exists. Last season, even with Clark missing most of the year, the Fever still led the league in road attendance by a massive margin, averaging nearly 15,900 fans per game, compared to roughly 11,000 for the next closest team. Those games sold out before the season even started, long before anyone knew she'd get injured. The demand wasn't speculative, it was real and sustained. This year, teams are betting that demand transfers to new storylines. The Toronto expansion, Portland joining the league, new rivalries, new stars. Maybe casual fans who discovered the WNBA through Caitlin Clark are now invested enough to follow the league more broadly. Or maybe they're about to relearn that star power still matters, and that sustained interest doesn't build itself overnight. The media strategy adds another layer to this experiment. The WNBA and Nielsen both touted record viewership last season, even though Clark appeared in only 13 games, using that data to argue the league's growth wasn't tied to one player. But a closer look shows that Fever games still dominated the top viewership slots, even the ones she didn't play in, because fans tune in hoping she returned or to see how the team performed without her. With fewer Fever games and marquee venues and time slots this season, we're about to get a clearer picture of what the league's baseline audience actually looks like. And the league has positioned itself to control the narrative either way. If ratings stay strong, they'll claim the WNBA has arrived as a major property that transcends individual stars. If ratings fall, they'll point to CBA uncertainty, scheduling issues, or external factors, and then quietly move more Fever games to bigger arenas, just as we've already seen with late winter announcements. The Washington Mystics and Connecticut Sun moved games against Indiana last season. This year, nothing yet. But watch what happens when projected revenues get compared to last year's numbers. Injury concerns and scheduling challenges tend to disappear quickly when financial pressure mounts. Because in professional sports, pride and narrative matter until they start costing real money. You can argue all you want that growth is inevitable and not tied to one player, but the difference between selling 7,000 tickets and selling 20,000 tickets changes the math fast. Premium seats, sponsorships, and gate revenue don't lie. Owners like Sheila Johnson and Renee Montgomery may push a collective success narrative, but they're business people first, and business people pay attention to revenue. The real question isn't whether the Caitlin Clark effect is real. Attendance and viewership already answered that. The question is whether the league is willing to fully capitalize on it, or whether pride and politics will limit its own growth. Right now, the WNBA is trying to have it both ways, downplaying her impact while still scheduling just enough Fever games in big venues to capture some of that revenue. It's a middle ground that satisfies no one. Fans are frustrated by limited access. Owners leave money on the table, and the league risks running an experiment that could backfire if attendance and ratings slide. Toronto's expansion gives the league cover to say, "Look, we're growing. This isn't about one player." But that doesn't answer the core question. Did the WNBA experience a Clark-driven spike that's about to normalize, or did she unlock a genuinely higher level of sustained interest? We're about to find out. Watch the February and March announcements. Watch which teams suddenly discover they can move games to bigger arenas after all. The gap between what the league says publicly and what teams do privately will tell you everything you need to know about whether the strategy is actually working.